You're the only one tethering me to this earth. A Smilin' Friends fanfiction readin'. Written and narrated by Precious Piece of Cheese. The link to the original fic will be in the description box below. Chapter 3 of 24. You'd have to stop the world just to stop the feelin'. Nothing felt real to Charlie after that. He could vaguely remember Pim saying that the movie was epic and that they went to Chili's after, but it felt like borrowed memories from another mind. He was on autopilot, but not enough for Pim to realize what was going on in his head. Charlie felt like his emotions were smothering his conscience like a fire blanket. Pim spoke of many things at dinner, still on cloud nine, but all Charlie could do was keep the conversation going unconsciously, barely registering anything he was saying. Then, the thought of working tomorrow. Good Lord. It was almost 10 p.m. when Pim and Charlie finally parted ways for the night. Charlie silently drove home and fell to his knees once he was inside his apartment. He curled up on the floor and just let it all out, having the most intense crying session since he was a child. Trying to suppress it all night was agonizing, and working tomorrow was going to be torture. He needed one more day, just one more day to sit with himself and figure out what to do. He knew that Pim would be suspicious if he didn't show up at work after appearing to be fine all night, so he knew calling out wasn't going to work. He just needed the world to stop and give him some time. Charlie's phone dinged. It was a good night message from Pim, also conveying his gratitude for the night. Charlie simply reacted to the message and lightly tossed the phone across the bed. He couldn't deal with giving a proper response to him. Cleaned up and tucked into bed, Charlie stared lifelessly at the darkened ceiling, feeling the crushing weight of his exhaustion begging him for sleep, yet his fickle mind kept him up. It was 1:47 a.m. with no solace in sight. He sighed in defeated frustration until something clicked in his head. This was what Pim must have felt like all of the time, and it broke Charlie's brain a bit. Maybe Pim was in the same position right now, mentally and emotionally exhausted from putting up a pleasant front all day, suppressing all the difficult and unpleasant emotions. Charlie then felt like a massive hypocrite for not practicing what he preached, but maybe it was easier said than done. Charlie flipped over, facing the shaded window near his bed. The dull, mono-yellow glow of the streetlights peeked through the blinds, casting hazy shapes on the worn, carpeted floors. He never felt so powerless. He usually felt like he could handle situations pretty well, at least well enough to keep himself together. Now, he could barely function emotionally. There was just too much going on in his mind, which made it all the more crippling that it was because of Pim, his dearest friend. Oh, Pim, Charlie sighed to himself. He couldn't process half of the emotions, but the surest thing he knew was that he wanted to protect and heal Pim, which was still a challenging one to digest. Of course, Charlie loved Pim. How could you not love a friend of 7 years? He cared for him a lot, and always had, but why were these specific feelings so foreign to him? After all of that time, it was only now that he felt the almost primal urge to protect Pim and a yearning for his peace. Deep down, he knew he should just talk it through with Pim, but he just wasn't ready yet since he barely knew what was going on. The tragedy was that he was like Pim in how he didn't really have anyone else to have solace with. He didn't really have friends outside of work, and he just didn't trust Alan and Glep's judgment on such a sensitive thing. He barely liked Alan half the time, and he knew how snarky Glep could get. Mr. Boss was out of the question because trauma dumping to your boss on personal matters was just plain embarrassing. Charlie did feel like Mr. Boss could give him some solid words of advice, if not for the corporate power structure's effect in their relationship. Then, it dawned on him. Tyler. Tyler could be the one he could talk to. After Pym, Charlie would consider Tyler to be his next closest friend. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to see each other as much since Tyler got fired, but they still had years of friendship behind them. They did occasionally take solace within each other, so the concept of opening up to him wouldn't be so strange, albeit still a little scary for Charlie to admit his feelings. But he could trust Tyler with something like this. He made a mental note to text Tyler at a more reasonable hour to see when they could hang out. Maybe go to a bar or something. Lord knew that Charlie would need a few in him in order to survive that conversation. Charlie, now to the point where his intense exhaustion outweighed his anxiety, finally fell asleep at 4 a.m. The edges of his perspective were hazy. The room was drowning in deep neon lights of magenta and indigo, and a thick royal purple drapery cloaked the walls. The rich sound vibrations of a song Charlie may have heard before but couldn't place coursed through his veins. Pink fog poured down from the ceiling that circled around Charlie, emitted a sweet fragrance. In the farthest distance was a burgundy fainting couch, which he found himself walking towards, even though he couldn't feel his feet touch the ground, or any part of his body, for that matter. A cloud of that pink fog puffed around the couch before Charlie could sit on it, revealing Pym once it cleared. Pym wore an orange silk robe that was completely open, with nothing underneath. He laid down on the couch on his side, propping his head up with his arm. Charlie rushed to his side, finding himself laying a hand upon Pym's hip. "Oh, dream lover," Pym purred in a voice that didn't belong to him. It was a richer and more heavily accented than Charlie was used to. It was intoxicating. Pym sat up and placed himself into Charlie's lap. He pressed his small hands onto Charlie's inner thighs and squeezed his flesh, gazing deep into his eyes with a knowing look. The intensity of his stare made Charlie feel like he would split in half. Charlie sighed in ecstasy. Charlie was roughly pulled out of his sleep by the grating alarm on his phone that he had developed a fight-or-flight response over. Despite his grogginess, he was cloaked in a cold sweat and an odd sensation coursing through his body. It was a dream. He sat straight up in bed, holding his head in his hands like he just killed a man for revenge and regretted it. He sure felt like he did upon realizing that the odd sensation was actually a wet situation happening down below. Charlie had never been more mortified in his life, and he hadn't even been publicly humiliated. Charlie let out a long, frustrated noise between a yell and a groan. As if everything else already was too much, getting aroused over a sensual dream about his best friend might as well kill him. He would have rather jumped off a cliff than attempt to unpack that information. Dreams don't mean shit, Charlie convinced himself. Yeah, none of that means anything. Charlie got out of bed and busied himself with getting ready for work, in a poor attempt to shove that dream into the dumpster corner of his mind. But the phantom touches of Dream Pym still lingered on his body, as if they were real. His mind ruminated on the warmth and ecstasy of how he felt within his dream for far too long. It wasn't that he felt weirded out by this because it was about another man, but that it was Pym specifically. Charlie knew that he liked men and women since he was 16, but to him, it felt so wrong that he'd think of his friend like that. He found it even more disturbing that he enjoyed it. Why the fuck did he enjoy it? What were the warm, fuzzy feelings he felt when looking back upon it? He shivered in disgust with himself, snapping himself out of his horny daze. Work was going to be a fucking chore that day if all he could think about was a half-naked Pym sitting in his lap. He wasn't even going to attempt to figure out what kind of repressed subconscious shit he had buried in the back of his brain for a dream like that to be conjured up. Charlie arrived to work last out of the bunch, as usual, walking into the break room to Pym, Alan, and Glep in their usual positions. Glep was in his beanbag chair on his iPad, playing TikToks at full volume. Alan was taking inventory in the cupboards, and Pym was at the table on his computer. Good morning, Charlie. Ready for another exciting day?
Sure, man,
Charlie replied through a yawn. He took a seat across from Pym. Did you sleep okay last night? I know you got home late. Charlie prayed that his face concealed his emotions, but by judging Pym's own expression, probably not. All Charlie could see was flashbacks to his dream. Oh, God. Not even 5 minutes into the shift and he was already fumbling. I'm fine. You don't sound fine, Alan chimed in. Shut up, Alan, I am fine, Charlie snapped. Glep muttered something Charlie couldn't pick up. How are you, Pym? Charlie asked to divert the attention away from himself. Swell as always. Pym gave him a lopsided smile and returned to typing. Charlie pulled out his phone and earbuds to distract himself. He couldn't tell if he wanted a quiet or busy day, since both would require interacting with his coworkers, which he really didn't feel like doing. After a little while, Charlie suddenly remembered that he had to text Tyler. Again, the thought of opening up to him made him nervous, but he knew it had to be done if he was going to get anywhere with this. Hey man, I'm thinking we should hang out sometime to catch up. When are you free? Charlie typed. He wasn't about to lay his true intentions right out of the gate, since he thought it would be too much. He hesitated before sending it, feeling the anxiety return to his gut. A little less than an hour later, Tyler responded. Hey Charlie, what's up? That'll be sick. I'm free later tonight when I get out of work. You? His hands were shaking. Tonight? Was he ready for that? How much should he say? One thing for sure was that no one was going to know about the dream. He was taking that to his grave. Charlie stared at the screen for 5 minutes before finally making a decision. Okay, tonight is fine. I get out at 5. Tyler responded a few minutes later. Okay, cool. I get out at 6. So how about 7? Sounds good. Did you hear about that new bar that opened on Meat Boulevard? Should we go there? Totally. I want to check it out anyway. Great. It's a plan. Charlie's anxieties lessened once he knew that alcohol was going to be in the equation. He knew that he was going to need some of that. He'd have to deal with the hangover at work tomorrow, but that wasn't his problem right now. It was a slow day, with only 2 minor calls to be dealt with. One to help a mom find her son's lost dog, and to help a teenager with exam anxiety. It was odd for Charlie to go back to work with his perspective of Pim severely altered, considering how closely they worked together. Charlie felt like he could see through Pim better, noticing that he was pleasant, but obviously not the bubbling enthusiasm that he projected during the movie last night. Maybe Charlie only perceived it that way because he was now going out of his way to look for that in Pim. But he truly felt that his new perspective was giving him a more nuanced version of Pim, since he was actively noticing it. When Pim was trying to exert his trademark giddiness to the clients, there was no heaven in his eyes or the specific wrinkles on his face that indicated a genuine smile. Charlie supposed that others wouldn't notice that Pim was putting up a front, since he was so good at it, but Charlie felt the shift in the air. He couldn't blame him, obviously, since being happy was basically his job. He also noted that throughout their whole shift, Pim had barely mentioned what happened during the last 2 days, as if he were trying to avoid it. It wasn't only Pim's demeanor that Charlie was taking note of, but his appearance too. Charlie cursed his brain for replaying the dream images every time he stared at Pim for long enough. But he'd be a fucking liar if he said that he didn't enjoy reliving those feelings. He just couldn't take his eyes off his friend when he caught him in certain lights and angles that just made him look so heavenly. Whether it was the way the light reflected off of his pink skin, or a slight droop in his eyes that appeared a little sultry, a primal part of Charlie relished in it. But he was still disturbed from the concept. He wouldn't even know what Pim would think if he knew these things. Still, he couldn't control the feeling in his gut when Pim called his name or told him that he did a good job at something. The thought of Pim that way was dangerously addictive. It was like that dream unearthed something that he didn't know he had. The day dragged a bit, but Charlie was finally able to go home and get ready to see Tyler. He tried to stay focused on the positive potentials instead of spiraling about what could go wrong. He knew Tyler well enough to know that he couldn't react too negatively or outrageously. Tyler was always a chill guy, but Charlie couldn't quell his nerves. He needed to remind himself that his mind would numb as soon as the liquor hit his tongue. He never craved alcohol more strongly in his life. Charlie made it to the bar and went inside to find Tyler. He spotted him sitting near the back wall, waving him over. "Charlie, my man!" Tyler called. He got out of his stool and approached Charlie for a fist bump. "Hey man, what's up?" Charlie followed Tyler back to where he was sitting. "You know how it is." Charlie sighed nonchalantly, not ready for that kind of question yet. "I feel you, brother. It's on me tonight." "Nah, dude, I can cover my part at least." "You paid last time. I thought we made a deal." "Okay, fine." The two men ordered their first drinks and began with casual talk. Tyler spoke about his new job at the bank and doing his music on the side, even playing some shows on occasion. Charlie was proud that Tyler was doing well for himself now, especially considering how hard his firing from Smilin' Friends was on him. The job market was brutal, he said, and that it was hard to find a job in this economy. Charlie caught Tyler up on his workplace drama and told stories about the adventures he had been on since he left. A snowman that came to life? Tyler could barely believe it. By the 2.5 round mark, both of them were effectively loosened up to the point where Charlie almost forgot why he was there to begin with. It was a lot of laughing at stupid jokes and telling the same old funny stories, the way things usually flowed between them. But the remaining logic in his brain declared that he should pull the trigger and bring it up. He wasn't going to leave without doing what he came to do.
Can I be honest with you?
Charlie began. Of course, brother. What's up? It's been tough recently. What's going on? Well, a close friend of mine isn't doing too well. It's Pim, isn't it? Charlie stopped dead in his tracks and stared at Tyler. How? Who else would it be, Charlie? I know you well enough. He's your best friend. Charlie fell silent. He was planning on keeping Pim's name out of it to respect his privacy, but apparently Tyler could read him better than he thought. He felt incredibly guilty for passing around something of Pim's that he considered a private matter, but he could trust Tyler to keep it between them, right? If I tell you, you have to swear to God not to tell Pim or anyone else what I'm going to say. Promise? Charlie was sweating profusely, wondering if this was a mistake. He felt like he was betraying Pim. Of course, man. You have my word. They shook on it.
Oh, God.
Charlie quickly took down the rest of his third beer.
It's so complicated. I don't even know where to begin.
He flagged down the bartender to get a fourth beer. I don't know if you ever noticed it, or if Pim ever told you, but he's really not as happy all of the time as he appears. He says that he puts up a positive persona and suppresses his real emotions. He told me directly, a couple days ago, and it's really messing with my head. Tyler nodded thoughtfully. He never said anything like that to me, but I can see it. I always thought that there was more to him than he portrayed. I don't know. It was just the vibe I got from him.
Am I the only one who's surprised then?
Probably not. I think that the rest of the Smilin' Friends wouldn't have suspected that either.
Well, regardless, it's been so hard on me since he told me, and I don't even know what to do. It's like I can't function anymore.
Really?
How so?
Charlie twisted his mouth in frustration, not even sure how to get the words out. Besides his own feelings being foreign to him, he wasn't sure how much he should say. Obviously, the dream and his weird desires were under lock and key.
I just feel so powerless. Like, I want to do whatever I can to make him
actually happy and feel the need to not pretend anymore. But I know that no matter what I do, I can't fix everything wrong in his life. Charlie's hands shook. The floodgates are open, and he was terrified. There was no going back. I understand, but why do you feel obligated to do that? No one person can do that for someone else. It's unrealistic. Because he's my best friend, and I care about him so much. Charlie felt like he was going to cry, but shoved it down and took a long sip. He could feel his voice cracking, and he hated it. He quickly wiped away a stray tear. Of course you do. But isn't just being there for him and doing what you can enough? I'm sure he appreciates everything you do for him regardless. I know, but I just want to do more. I just want to take away his pain and protect him from everything that haunts and hurts him. He doesn't deserve to live like how he's been living, and it distresses me to no end. It hurts me. God damn it, it hurts so badly. Charlie was very wound up and drunk enough now that he began spilling out details without thinking. It was like his unconscious was controlling how his mouth moved, unearthing some things that he may not have said otherwise. He buried his face in his hands so Tyler couldn't see the tears quickly spilling out. Tyler looked at him with shock and concern, considering he had never seen Charlie in such obvious distress. Tyler usually saw the chill, unbothered side of Charlie, so it was shocking when Charlie did exhibit such emotions. It's okay, brother. He put a sympathetic hand on Charlie's shoulder. He wasn't quite sure how to respond. I just hate the way this makes me feel. I'm crying all of the time, and everything that makes me think of him makes me cry too. It's all stressing me out, and I can't even tell him this because it's so embarrassing, and it'll just make him feel worse for telling me that to begin with. I just want it to stop. His voice grew louder, and his words were more jumbled the further he continued, like he lost all self-control. Charlie was actively crying at this point. Nearby people at the bar glanced over at the scene he was making, wondering what was going on. I wish I could help you, dude, but I really think you need to talk to Pim about this. I know you don't want to hear that, but it's true, Tyler said cautiously. I just love him so much, and I don't want to burden him with my stupid fucking feelings that don't even make sense, Charlie blurted. He finished the rest of his fourth drink. He never actually said that he loved Pim to anyone before. He would never, ever admit that sober, even though he just saw it as platonic love. Tyler stuttered for a couple of seconds, completely caught off guard. I still think you need to talk to him about this. He paused for a few minutes, staring at the ground, trying to conjure up something helpful to say. You know, I don't think Pim would want you to suppress your own emotions around him either. Maybe, if you were more open with him, it would encourage him to do the same. It's something you can work through together, considering you're both kind of in the same boat.
Oh God, you're so right, Charlie cried.
He acquired a fifth drink and took down a third of it in one sip. You know, you don't need to have everything figured out right now. And it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling. It's just that suppressing your emotions isn't going to help you get through this.
But I just want them to go away. It's killing me. I just need the world to stop for a bit. I can't handle this. Why is this fucking world so cruel to Pim?
I'm sorry, man, but the world stops for no one. You're a strong dude. You'll make it out of this. I promise. Just think about it this way. Isn't it wonderful to have someone in your life that you care so strongly about?
I love you, brother. You're the best.
Charlie leaned over to hug Tyler. Do you feel better now?
Kinda. It's still so hard to navigate these feelings.
I get it. I'm glad that you told me since I know how hard it is to speak about something like that.
Yeah.
Charlie sniffed. He finished the rest of his fifth beer. Come on, man. Let's get you home. It's getting late. Tyler checked his phone, which declared that it was 11:18 p.m. They both had work tomorrow. Tyler helped the very intoxicated Charlie out of his stool and let him lean heavily on him as they walked out of the bar. Tyler called an Uber to take them home and a tow truck to get their cars back to their proper places. Charlie, barely conscious of his surroundings at this point, had Tyler walk him back to his apartment once the Uber got to Charlie's complex. Let me know if you need anything, okay? Tyler said. Charlie muttered something incoherent. Tyler hesitated before leaving the very drunk Charlie alone in his apartment. Charlie laid down on his couch and blacked out. If you had made it to the end of this chapter, thank you so much for listening. This chapter is the chapter title is obviously taken from Good Luck Babe by Chapel Roan, not because of the explicit meaning of it necessarily, but I kind of the line I pulled from is like basically how Charlie can't ignore his feelings anymore, kind of like in the song. But I think this is like a slightly different context. But probably what I get the most, like what I have gotten like the most comments on for this chapter specifically is the inclusion of Tyler, because I see a lot of people have really liked that I included Tyler into this story, and me too, honestly, because like in this story, like this is not the only time he's going to appear. He's going to appear in other chapters, but where Tyler's kind of like I'd say like the middleman of this situation is kind of not the right term, but it's like when he's just like Charlie's rock when it comes to like dealing with Pym stuff, because like Tyler's like because Pym's like his number one guy. Obviously, like if he's gonna tell anything to anyone, he's going to tell Pym first. But at this stage in his life, he's like when Pym's not there, Tyler is my second rock. So it's kind of like it shows that like Charlie is not isolated in this situation, and he does like have other people to confide in that he trusts, at least in this stage in the story. And I really enjoyed. I remember I enjoyed writing the dialogue between Charlie and Tyler in the bar. one of my favorite things to write is just Charlie drunkenly crashing out to somebody. Because I don't quite understand why myself, but I just love writing Charlie's internal struggles so much, which is why I'm currently writing another fic that is like similar, but just with different characters. But yeah, and it was like fun. I felt like this chapter was like really fun to read because I just find that the thing is Charlie is not even my favorite character, or like close to my favorite Smiling Friends character. But why is he like my favorite one to write for? Because Alan is my favorite character, and like I like Charlie obviously, but something about the way this man moves just fascinates me, and I know he's like, especially fucking considering the series finale episode. What this ain't the place to talk about it, but what I have to know is goddamn, and I am taking notes for when I have to write him, cause Jesus Christ, poor Charlie. Anyway, I think writing for Charlie is so like interesting because like it's obvious that he's kind of like pretending to be aloof and like chill and shit, but like he doesn't express his emotions like a lot. So I kind of like characterize him as like someone that's like very repressed, like very emotionally repressed. And like he kind of learns to open up with people and to like be true to himself because he will learn later that people love him just for how he is and he doesn't need to act a certain way to get people to like him. Similar to Pim, which is why Tyler said you and Pim seem to be in a similar situation, which is true. They kind of grow together in this story, if you will. The wet dream, okay? This was like the most scandalous thing I've written at that point. Because I was like, oh my god, is this too much? Girl, you need to chill out. But basically, Charlie's wet dream is like what kind of like speeds up his mental process of realizing that he likes Pim for real. I just like doing this where it's like dreams help characters understand their feelings because I love dreams and I think dreams can provide some good clarity or like just a different perspective if it like follows you through the unconscious. But yeah, I quite like this chapter and it's like kind of like after this chapter shit really starts like going forward. But we still got a fuck ton more chapters to go. So yeah, subscribe for chapter 4 and I have a playlist of all the chapters that will be in order, so if you want to listen to that, you can do that. So yeah, thank you for listening and I hope to see you next time. Bye.